that's the beauty of this tournament. When you compare it to other styles of tournaments, NBA, it's one and done. That's the beauty of it. This is it. And that's why it's March Madness, because anything can happen. When we keep saying this, a lot has to go right for a win in these tournaments. Not just women, men. A lot has to go right. But then you also need that luck factor. You just need that luck factor. Hey y'all, it's nothing lightly. We're back with another episode. I'm C's and that's Dee Dee. This one, today we gonna kick off March Madness. It's still March. We're in the last 2 weeks of it. And you know this is our favorite time of the year. So let's get into it. We took a short break. I know we kind of missed out last week, but Deasia was doing something big. She's in medical school, if you all didn't know. So duty calls with that. But anyway, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on TikTok. Follow us on Instagram. Hit the like, the share button, all of that. And wherever you get your podcast, wherever you listen, follow us on those platforms and give us 5 stars. Deasia, let's tell them what we're up to today.
So today we're going to be discussing NCAA. We're going to be talking about what's going on the men's side and women's side. They're heading into the second round now, getting ready for the Sweet 16. We're going to discuss some of the controversial topics as far as like which teams got the number 1 seeds and which team thought that they should have had the overall number 1 seed. And that's both on the men's and women's side. There's some controversy as far as the, how those selections go. Then we're going to discuss, of course, some of the upsets that's been going on. We're going to talk about just how we feel about the NCAA right now, viewership on the women's side. Then we're going to talk about, of course, our bread and butter, the WNBA and the NBA, what we love to discuss. And we'll transition into track and field, volleyball, and soccer. That'll kind of be our episodes. And, of course, we're going to finish off with Unrivaled. So it's only right that we finish off with that as well. We want to discuss the winner and, how we all got shocked by that. But let's get into it, C's. First, starting off, the NCAA discussed that controversial topic with the top number 1 seeds and who thought that they should have had the overall number 1 seed.
All right, so let's get into that. NCAA for the women, it was a lot of controversy. There. Let me just kind of give some backstory though. The brackets break down if they played well in the regular season. If you played it well and won your conference, you can get selected for this NCAA tournament. It's 1 and out, so if you lose, you out of the tournament. But it is not just based on conference. So you can have 2 teams that come out of their conference and they can play in different sections. So you have to play well in the regular season. So when we say 4 overalls, it was 4 teams overall that had a number 1. They can be number 1 in a section. So you got to imagine 4 different regions pretty much, if that's how. It's not really region-based, but 4 different sections on the bracket, right? And all of those teams, if it comes out perfect, they should meet up in the Final Four. Of course, that never really happens, but you reward the teams that play well, right? So UCLA, and me and Deasia was going back. If you listen to other episodes, you would have heard us going back. UCLA held the number 1 spot for the women throughout most of the regular season. Deasia was on the side, and she was doubling down on this fact that they was a true number 1. Deasia, were they a true number 1?
They were not a true number 1 at the time.
Oh. Yeah, so they weren't a true number 1. But the reason why is they got beat by USC, I think twice. They played 3 times. USC beat them twice in the regular season, but they still remain number 1. So that was kind of the USC's coach, and we're talking about University of Southern California. That was kind of their her argument on that. If we beat them twice in the regular season, they only got them at their conference tournament. Why did they remain in the number 1 spot? Because this number 1 team, UCLA, if they get to the championship, they will have home court advantage, right? But then we got on the other side, Dawn Staley from South Carolina is saying, hey, we had the hardest schedule. we played teams. I think they only lost 3 times this year. We played the hardest schedule, and we're playing a lot of these AP 25 teams. We're playing these teams more than any other team. So why aren't you rewarding us with that? And she's rightfully so. Like, if on average, if other teams aren't losing games and they're having an average schedule, hey, and they're rewarded with UCLA, like UCLA, then hey, we should do that next year. And she's right about that. If we're going to play this hard schedule and we put ourselves at jeopardy to lose games, you still need to reward us because we played these harder teams. We still they only lost 3 games. They were still beating top 25 teams. So why weren't they the number one overall seed? So, Deasia, what's your thoughts on that? Do you agree with either coach? And then Texas, I mean, they did hold the number one spot at the end, so I can see that they beat some top 25 teams at the end. How do you feel about this controversy? Do you remain that UCLA should have been number one overall, or do you agree with Don Staley?
No, I don't agree. I don't agree with UCLA being number one overall. I've been saying that they wasn't a true number one. I still stand on that. I don't see them winning this tournament. If they do, I don't know. I feel like teams, they haven't figured them out all the way. And really, I figured them out and I'm just watching. So I know a coach that's able to break down these plays a little bit more than me. They got a lot more video film on these teams. I know that you could figure out UCLA. What I said last time, if Betts is not playing well, what can UCLA give you? I don't think their wings are strong enough to be able to beat South Carolina. I don't think their wings are strong enough if Notre Dame ends up into that Final Four. I don't think that they could beat them. But as we've saw, it's just been a proven fact this year. USC has beat UCLA twice because they figured them out. They figured that if we pressing in, playing good defense, if we make it tough for Betts to catch, now what? We got to make the wings score. Now, yeah, they got some shooters, but that's not enough. It's just not enough. And I think when Juju is playing really well, when her teammates come to play really well, that's what makes them very difficult to stop. And that's why they continuously to beat UCLA. Now, they did lose in a conference tournament to UCLA, but I just think that's just one of them games. You know, you always have a game, but when it comes to the NCAA, that's different from a conference tournament. There's going to be a lot more at stake. Imagine, USC already beat UCLA with low stakes. Imagine what they're going to do in the NCAA tournament if those are the two final teams that's playing. However, I don't think that's how that's going to go. I think that South Carolina is going to be in it, and I don't think UCLA is going to finish up. I just don't see it. They're going to get beat.
So what's also kind of difficult about this? Well, I wouldn't say difficult. Maybe that's not the word. What is kind of questionable about this is USC, because they didn't get overall, they are going to have to play UConn. So somebody would have had to play UConn. And see, the women, Deasia, is so hard. I mean, we can name 8 teams that was kind of like really throughout the course of the season, we could have saw them number one seed, right? It just happens that UConn and USC are in that same bracket together. If they get through their rounds, they will have to play each other for the final to get into the Final Four. And the same thing, Notre Dame is still, they weren't a number one. LSU wasn't a number one. But I mean, if we're thinking about viewership, right, Deasia, and I think Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe, they mentioned this on their podcast, and I agree with this. You want to see, for viewership, for fans, you do want to see Paige Beckers play Juju Watkins, right? You want to see them play. But do you want to see them play in the championship, in the Final Four, or do you want to see them play in the second round? Do you want to see them play for the Elite Eight or something like that? That's what the question is. So this is why it was so big of a deal that they weren't chosen for number one. And if you beat a team twice, Deasia, I think that kind of, so it's like, what committee, what questions what are the deciding factors? You gotta be more clear on that, because it's up in the air and they just got to do a better job. But I don't think that's the problem, Deasia. Nobody was anticipating this season to be this competitive. That's like, it's so competitive that, I mean, at some point, somebody's going to be disappointed. It's just upsetting to know that it's the two teams that could both win, right?
Yeah, what's bad about it too is that, I mean, all these teams have a shot. So it's not like
Yeah.
last year where you just wanted to see South Carolina beat. Honestly, I didn't even want to see South Carolina versus Iowa. I wanted to see South Carolina versus LSU. I wanted to see that But that's not how it happened. It's always going to be a team that you expect they fall, right? What we got was Iowa and South Carolina, and we know what happened there. South Carolina went on to win. This year, there's going to be an unfortunate, some team is not going to be able to make it, whether that's Texas, whether that's Notre Dame, whether that's LSU. That could even be USC. Who knows? That could be a UConn. Everybody's going to throw their bias in it. My bias is clear. I don't want UCLA to win because I don't think, and that's not even biased, that's just a fact. Based on what they've been doing all year, I don't think their schedule was as hard as South Carolina, and I think they got beat consistently to USC, proving that they're not a number one. The team that I feel like that's still hard to beat is South Carolina, just because of their depth, their coaching. They've been there before. A lot of those players have already been not only in a Final Four, but in a championship game. That's something that's important here that a lot of people are not talking about. When you have a team that's been in that predicament before, several players on that team, they know how to last in a tournament, and they know how to last in a game. I mean, they just was in a close game with Indiana here, and they pulled that out. So they've shown you that they can win blowout games, they can win close games, and they can win very close games. When Dawn Staley she just gonna coach the same way. It's up to them to make shots and get stops. They're their best when they're playing defense. But I do gotta agree that there are other teams that's coming, and I don't know if that's going to affect them this year. But we know, to be honest, Sierra, anybody that's not saying South Carolina is not going to take one side of that finals, I don't know. I just don't understand that, because really that is the team that still beat. They still have that target on their back. So I agree with Dawn Staley. They should have had the number one overall seed, and they should have had that easy route to the Final Four, just like UCLA has, which they don't necessarily deserve. Just because you were a number one earlier does not mean you were number one late.
But I think this, DH, the combined argument of USC with what Dawn Staley is saying is why they shouldn't have been. Because even if she's vouching for her team, the fact that they got beat twice by USC, it just doesn't,
we can say that.
And one of the games was it wasn't a blowout, but it was a pretty thick margin, right? So, and the only reason why, and we always talk about this with basketball, DH, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. That's probably the only reason why they lost. We always talk about stuff like that. Like, try to beat a team 3 times. They're going to figure you out that 3rd time, so it's just the numbers. It's just the odds playing against you, right? It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. That's just it. But I can see the combined argument of USC and SC. That is why we're kind of standing on the fence. Like UCLA, they shouldn't have had the clear path. And it's a fight for all of these other teams.
Yeah, and it's a dog fight. That's what this is about. This is the NCAA tournament. We've seen this happen in other leagues. It's just happening now with one of the best at it. It's March. This is what you come for. You come to see an upset. You come to see Ole Miss beat a Baylor. You come to see that. I come to see a LSU take down a seed that they should take down, and then I turn around a week later and they're in a close game with somebody they've been playing all year. That's what you come to see. You want to see these conferences, the teams that they've been playing in a conference, you want to see them rise to the occasion too. They got to knock them off. You can't forget about a Vanderbilt. You cannot forget about a Tennessee. These teams are still there. Kentucky just lost, but unfortunately, that's what happens. They just lost to Kansas State. You're going to see that was a team that should have made it to the Elite Eight, Sweet 16. They just lost by 1 point. So anything can happen.
Well, DA should talk about this. You pointed out to me earlier that this is one of the highest scoring tournaments that we've seen. Go into some of those games, go into what you have been seeing in this tournament so far. You name some of the games, but kind of highlight what you've seen with those games.
Yeah, so we've seen out of this is the first time that there have been 6 teams that have scored over 100 points. So that's South Carolina, that's Notre Dame, UCLA, I believe Texas, LSU. Like, these teams are scoring over 100 points here. They're putting that deep margin.
You should notice the pattern. These are the same teams that we just mentioned that could have controlled, all of them could have had a number 1 seed.
Yeah, and scoring over 100 points in an NCAA tournament here, that's huge, because you would expect, like, you see that early in the season, okay, the teams are just, like, I'm not talking about your top 25 teams. I'm talking about a team that's not in the top 25. They're just now figuring it out. at the tournament, you've played with your team all year. You should have figured it out. And plus, don't you want to make it through the rounds? Be one of them Cinderella upset stories? You gotta be able to stop a team from scoring 100 points. But this is showing, Sierra, these teams are getting better, and those other teams are just not rising to the occasion yet. They've made it to the tournament, great. Their conference may not be that good. I hate to say it, but that could be true. But it could also be true that they're just not prepared for these top 25 teams, or maybe these top 25 teams now they're playing because they know that these upsets may happen. The thing about women's sports this year, nothing lower than a 3 seed has ever won a championship. So that tells you again that the final four, these brackets that are made up where it's already the top 4, those are usually the teams that go on to win. Nothing less than a 3 seed has ever won the NCAA tournament on the women's side. So that tells you you're most likely not going to see a 16 seed. They may make it to the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, but they're not going to get past that. And why? It's because you got teams like South Carolina putting up 100-something points. You got LSU putting up 100-something points. And why do we know that that's happening? They've been doing it all year. See, look at Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles. They've been scoring over 30, 40 combined points in consecutive games, So why wouldn't they rise even further to the occasion in the tournament? They want to make a statement. And these coaches are saying, we not doing that blowout rule no more. We got to show them you don't have a chance.
I think a lot of teams, they still go with, you play, and when you get past 80, you kind of say, okay, let's clear the bench. But these teams are making a statement. These teams are coming out here, Deasia, and they're here to score. They're here to put the ball in the basket and put these teams away. But this is a one and done tournament. They putting these teams away. That's it. So you kind of can't be saying, well, let's make it a game. Let's clear the bench and No, they're here to put these teams away and silence this crowd. But still, because again, it's so competitive. You don't know what's gonna happen.
What happens when you clear the bench with South Carolina? She just brings in more good players.
And let's talk about
more that. Off the bench than the starters. The bench scores more. So, okay, she going to clear a bench. Let's say she does that. Then who else does she bring in? She brings in more scores. Okay, she clears the bench further. What does she bring in? All-American. She clears the bench further. She brings in players that may score 2 to 4 points. Get them going early in the tournament. That's smart. But guess what, Sierra? When Dawn Staley clears her bench, she's still going to get 100 points. But that's not always. I will say this about them, Sarah. When she clears her bench, she gets 100 points when they playing a lower seed team. When they playing a team that's ready to come out there and play, just like Indiana, they didn't win by much. It was a 64 to 54, I think. That was that final game.
Deasia, we're not saying these numbers to say defense isn't being played. It's being played.
Indiana,
these are knockout rounds. You got to throw a punch and they throwing it back, and then you have to defend. You can't, because these teams are scoring. If you don't score, Deasia, they can run up 120 points. You have to defend. Especially you got... Deasia, look at the average player now, right? When you got guards 6'2", 6'1" on the wings, plus Betts 6'5", 6'6", I don't know, under the basket, she puts up most of the points for UCLA. So you have to defend that. You got to throw 2 and 3 forwards to defend that. Audie Crooks, Deasia, you got to defend that. If you don't defend that, she can hit you for 30 under that basket. But what I'm saying with Malaysia for Wiley, Deasia, in that Indiana game, she didn't barely play. That's your point, that she was on the bench and they did this. She was literally on the bench.
But Sierra, what I'm saying is that game they won 64 to 53. That tells you that Indiana still came out and played. They just didn't have enough down the stretch. But that's what the other teams should be doing. Look at that. You can close these margins. You may not beat them, but at least don't go down 100 and something to 20. We've seen games like that. UConn beat somebody, Sarah. They didn't even have 20 points in the fourth.
Yeah. Well, I say this. Dawn Staley did say on the record they asked her why she didn't. And I'm going back to this recent SC game versus Indiana. Why didn't she go back with Malaysia for Wiley? Because people want to see her play. You just saw that Steph got her on a t-shirt. He want to see her play. This is a big dog in this league, right? People want to see her, right? Why didn't you go back with Malaysia on the biggest stage? If they lose, this is the game of the year, right? This is it for her this season. Why didn't she play? Well, she said, you know what? It wasn't nothing that happened. I just was going with my sets. And good coaches, that's their response. Good coaches with good teams that they can trust their players, that's their response. DH, if you are playing better than me at the point guard position and with the group that you were playing with, that's just it, right? Go with your sets. It was nothing that she did wrong. It was no mistake she was making. This team is that good that they have sets that they can go with. If she isn't out there, her number will be called again.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's just going to be an interesting tournament. We just getting started. It's interesting to see that South Carolina barely just beat Indiana, but they're going on. That's what this is about. You don't have to win by a lot of margins. Honestly, Sierra, K-State, they just beat Kentucky by 1 point, and they're moving on. So you may see UConn. They could be in a close game. And that's the reason, Sierra, honestly, Sierra, that's why UConn is not they don't have a number one seed. They lost too many games. So teams are coming for them. They have to score 100 and some points to show.
And the target on their back is, DH, and I hate to cut you off. I'm going to just say this. It's because of their history.
Yeah, I mean they're UConn here. It's like South Carolina now. They're historically, a lot of people want to see UConn do well, and they've played well. Let's not get it wrong. They played well this season. They just have lost as well. They're like LSU. They played well, but they've lost. And
they face some injuries. They face some ups and downs.
And so
has
season. LSU. So these are similar teams in a tournament. They have to go out there and score 100 some points, 80 some points. They have to show teams that you do not have a chance, because they can't take a chance. You can't take a chance if Anissa Morrows get hurt. See, now what LSU got? They don't have nothing. Flajay get hurt. They don't have anything else. Michaela Williams get hurt. What else are you going to go to? They don't have as deep as benches. If South Carolina, if
they're missing the luxury of the bench.
Yeah, that's what they're missing. And honestly, Sierra, Moki is just a great coach. I've seen her coach great games this year, and they really just didn't have it. She's coached without Flajay, and they've maintained. They might not have won that game, but they've gotten what she asked for, most likely. Go out there and play hard. Get ready for the tournament. That's what they've done. That's going to be a tough team to stop. They are.
There's so much that we can say, though. The biggest thing is the excitement. Caitlin Clark is in the WNBA. Did she leave her mark in this college tournament? And have we had years of this? We talk about the history of UConn, but it's been years of women's basketball. We always talk about the height of it is college basketball. The WNBA is just now getting what it should. It's getting to where it should be. We always knew, but it's like other fans are now catching on. But for basketball on the women's side, the epitome, the height of it, the Mount Rushmore of basketball for women, it's always been college, right, Deasia? We've said that. So talk about kind of the history when we think about Tennessee, when we think about UConn. What is it?
When we talk about the history of UConn and South Carolina, we've known for years, since the early 2000s, Gino has consecutively had championships. He's the most winningest coach besides Pat Summitt. It's him, Pat Summitt, Don Staley, and Kim Mulkey. These are the most winningest coaches. It's just a fact. Gino has had consecutive tournament championships in the 2000s. He has done it this year. I think his last one was in 2016. So they're looking to do something big this year. You got Sue Bird. You got Diana Taurasi. You have Amaya Moore. They want to see Brianna Stewart. You have
Fee.
You got Queen Fee. You have these players here that want to see their team go on to win a championship. They're rooting for them. On the other side, for South Carolina, you got Asia Wilson. You have a Leah Boston. You got a Camila Cardoza.
Alicia Gray.
You got Alicia Gray. You have these teams that are looking forward to that. They want to see these teams win.
And then Notre Dame. Got
and
the great Skylar Diggins.
You got to mention Skylar Diggins. You got to mention Enrique. I mean, these are just what you got on Notre Dame, Sierra. We
talking about the traditional the tradition that comes from college. For Tennessee, you got the dominant Candace Parker, right? Even USC, Deasia, they have their history. They have arguably the founding woman of women's basketball, Cheryl Miller. So all of these teams that we talk about, they have their history. But it's great to see that this is now starting to transition into the WNBA, which it needs to. It needs to be a professional level. But college has always been exciting. Now look at the numbers though. From last year, Caitlin Clark has helped skyrocket college women's basketball. I was just looking this up. Let me go back to it. Viewership in the 2024, last year's tournament, had reflected a 121% increase from the previous year, which is huge because she played in the previous year, and that was a big year, right? They set an all-time record of 436,055 fans attending games, and they surpassed the previous record by like 78,513 fans. And this is what Caitlin Clark, the crowds that she was drawing into arenas, this is the viewership. But this year, so those numbers, of course, they dipped a little bit. But when you maintain it in the first 4 games, Deasia, even watching a North Carolina versus San Diego State, they drew 2.2 million viewers. That's huge, right? 3.6 million with the first 4 record, and that's the first 4 games that we saw play. So that was like Iowa State versus Princeton. So these are still record-setting numbers where we see the growth of college women's basketball. And what is that going to do? That is one thing, putting money in the pockets of those colleges, because remember, this is the first time that they're getting paid, which they deserve to be getting paid for the likeness of these players and these teams putting this tournament together. But also, if you just think about where is this going to transition them into their career, and some of them are going to go on and play professionally. But for those who don't, Deasia, are these those last moments that are unforgettable? How would you hold these moments to you? Like, this is your last moment, possibly you're a senior now, your 4th or 5th year, and you playing in this tournament. What does this mean to you as a team? We just kind of saw it with Baylor. The emotions of that game, Ole Miss and Baylor, you saw the girl in the last 20 seconds on the bench crying because she just missed a shot. Like, can you put into words those moments of how they are probably feeling?
Well, I think every team is going to be devastated in some way. This tournament, it's just like anything. This is a one and done. So it's not a series. You cannot say, okay, we're going to come back and play harder tomorrow. This is it. Your season, it technically, it lines up to just this moment. You have to play good every game. And we know game of basketball, it's a game of plays, like next play. You always got to be going for the next play. There's so many errors in the game that we see, some that you might miss, or that might have not been the play that the coach called up, and something else might go through or something might go wrong. That's just how this game works, so we can amount to it. The players are probably like, dog, if I would have made those free throws, if I would have got that steal, if I would have made that shot. But there's so many plays throughout that game. If you keep saying it came down to this one play, that's just unfortunate. There are many stops that had to happen within the game, many shots that had to go down. And that's really why the emotion comes out, because there's a lot. It's not just even from this game. It's from the entire season. But especially this game, you are feeling all of those emotions of I could have done this, and it comes out that what I did was just not enough. I just watched literally Kentucky. They had a great look. That was a great play. She got open. She got the look that she wanted, but she just missed the floater. And we know that a floater is not always the easiest shot. Sarah, she probably can say, wow, I should have used the backboard. I should have did this. I should have did that. But what does she say? I liked what she said. Hey, I'm not going to let my college career, be judged on one play. She's going to go to the WNBA, Sierra. Maybe it's more emotions for somebody that may not go to the WNBA, but either way, the emotions, you see both sides. I'm pretty sure she was devastated she missed that shot. But then you look at Baylor, and I do see the crying. And I could see that too, that it's hard. And I don't know if some of those players are going to go to the WNBA or make the team. But it comes to it. And that's the end of basketball, unfortunately. But there are so many more avenues now. And that's why the WNBA is so important. Them revamping, them extending more offers to more cities to
Expanding.
expand. That's why it's important. So you don't have a player, a Baylor player or a Kentucky player looking like, this is it for me with basketball. Wow, I didn't get that stop. That's it for me with basketball. No, there's always something next. And I'm not saying every player has dreams of the WNBA, Sierra, but really it comes down to that emotion at the end of the game, and that's it. In the tournament, it could be it for basketball. I don't know, but that's just the reality that they face very quickly, and that's why the
But
emotion comes out.
I want to say this, like you kind of touched on it. It's a lot that goes into the season. These are 30 plus game seasons. They've been playing since the fall in some way or another. This team is put together probably in the summer or spring. After this tournament, DH, they're going to start to their next. They're going to start. They probably going to have a little break and then a quick turnaround. So she might come back. But is it a hard road to get back? Yes, it is. This is not easy. Some of those teams, it is. That's why they call it a Sweet 16. It's a dream come true. To go dancing, it's a dream come true. Some of these teams, and they could be big time teams. These are big schools. It doesn't always happen like that. And then for you to come back with that group, those groups can be so special. So, I mean, I understand those emotions. I've never necessarily felt them, but to play the game of basketball and know the passion that comes with it, to know that sometimes it does rely on a shot, it does rely on a stop. Everything almost has to go right for it to just go right, and it's always going to be a loser and a winner. That's it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like what you said, that it literally is going to come down to a stop that you can make. And you mentioned it, that who knows how much fight that this team had to go through to get to this tournament. Some teams are selected based on their schedule. Some teams just literally make it because they won their conferences, and that's not easy to do either. That's why you see some of these teams here. You will see an Ivy League like a Harvard. They won their conference. They're in this tournament. Do we think that they're going to make it very far? No, but you may see that emotion on some of their faces because that's really it. I mean, this is what Sierra Baylor, they've had a great run. They didn't lose too many games this year. So it's also that knowing that you had a great season and it's coming to an end. That's just what this emotion is. And you see that on the women's and the men's side. Like, look, UConn just lost here after the season that they've had. They just lost a big game on the men's side. By what was that, 2 points? They just lost to Florida. And so to think the coach, he was holding back tears. UConn's coach.
And the reason why that's huge is because to see a three-peat in college basketball, men's college basketball, it hasn't happened in 50 years. That takes you back. That's the history of it. To see that happen, first of all, to get two is outstanding. That's incredible. To go for three though and have a chance for three, it's almost like it's like, dang, we ain't gonna get to see it. But that's the beauty of basketball, and that's the beauty of this tournament. When you compare it to other styles of tournaments, NBA, it's one and done. That's the beauty of it. This is it, and that's why it's March Madness, because anything can happen. When we keep saying this, a lot has to go right for a win in these tournaments. Not just women, men. A lot has to go right, but then you also need that luck factor. You just need that luck factor. And would UConn have been lucky? Yes, they would have. To go on, and this hasn't been done in 50 years, that you can't tell me luck is not in that. But so let's transition into the men, Deasia. We had four, and it wasn't as controversial as the women. You got Auburn overall number one. You got Duke, Houston, and Florida. Florida, the number one team in their section, just beat UConn. So that was a big game. UConn would have went on dancing. Instead, Florida does. But they have been playing well all year. They got leaders like Elijah Martin. They've got Clayton on that team. You just had some outstanding performances in that game. And notice, they did not lead into the last few minutes of that game. So that's why it's March Madness. It's those moments that you got to come and play. This is it. I mean, these teams, Deasia, they kind of have the similar, where it's normally the top 8 seeds go on. One of the top 8 seeds go on to win the tournament, right? But you still got to get through. You cannot take Any game, someone can go out there and be beat. And we saw that in the men's side, DH. BYU, who we've been keeping eyes on all season, went out there and they won their game last night. We've been saying this all season. Watch BYU. Watch BYU, and we still know who's coming. They got the number 1 player coming, which is exciting for them. I don't think they will have enough to go on and win a tournament, but they are putting themselves on the map. They're putting themselves like, hey, we're definitely a top 25 team next year. How do you feel about the men?
Well, I hate to say it, Sierra. I listen to a lot of the men. I mean, I'm watching it now because it's on, and I'm going back and forth and watching the women. But I feel like when I'm trying to figure out my brackets for the men, it's like I got a blindfold on my eyes because I haven't watched enough men's college basketball this season to make a definite pick. I know that Auburn is good. I know that Duke played well with Cooper Flag. I know the top teams, but I can't tell you my Cinderella story teams, and that's kind of what you see on the men's side. So it's like now I got a blindfold on trying to choose based on seeds, but that's not how the men's tournament works. You will see some Sweet 16, some teams that are not, and they're not top 16 teams. They will come in with a lower seed and you'll see them make the Sweet 16. I mean, look at McNeese, Sierra. This is a team that has they won 2 games now. So this is stuff that I could not predict. It's like when I'm choosing with them, I got blindfolds on. I'm just being honest. I've not watched enough college men's basketball, but I've watched a whole lot of college women's basketball. So with that, I know exactly how to set up my brackets. I know who I want. I know who I think is in the Final Four. But on the men's side, it's just really tough right now. And I'm just being a fan. I want to watch the games. I want to, absorb it like a fan would. I want to see the upsets I don't necessarily have a legit bracket.
You don't want the biased opinion.
Yeah, I don't want the bias of, I'm choosing because they're a higher seed, or or because they're from Illinois, or, I'm rooting for this team. I don't want none of that. I just want to watch good basketball. I want to see a team, Sierra, if you down by 10 with maybe 8 minutes to go, I want to see you get some stops. I want to see you get some consistent stops and go back and score. I want to see you cut the game to 5 and 7 within maybe 2 or 3 minutes left. And then I want to see you hit some threes down the stretch, and I want to see good coaching. I want to see you put that team on the foul line and let them miss some free throws and you go back and score. Now we got a 1 possession game. That's what I want to see. And that's what could happen. That's when you got a good coach and you got players that are executing. That's what I want to see. I was just seeing a tweet where Asia Wilson was saying she liked what South Dakota State was doing. Very fundamental. You can see that on both sides. Like the men can do that. These are teams that could go and upset somebody because they're playing fundamental and they're listening to the coach. They're not doing something crazy. When you do that, go out and play hard, get stops and score. You can win and move on. Yeah. That's all. Just play fundamental basketball. Do what you've been doing. Get better as you go.
Well, I just want to say this, Asia, that a lot of you're not wrong in saying you don't know. People that have watched college men's basketball week after week are still up in the air about who's going to win. I don't think you don't have those top 8 teams across the board that we've seen in women. It's been a crazy year for the men. Like, a lot of people don't know who to choose. You can't just say it's going to be an overall Duke because Cooper Flag wasn't playing. He just came back. It's going to be Auburn. I think that it's not as clear to us who's going to be in the Final Four, who's going to be in the Elite 8 with the men. Anybody who's been watching know. I mean, you got great coaches. I think there's a lot of moving pieces more so with the men you look at the St. John's versus Arkansas. Those are 2 big-time coaches playing against each other. St. John's is a very good team, and they lost yesterday to Arkansas. That was a good game to watch, right? We don't know. This is a knockout round. My brackets are shot, Deasia. And I think I've been watching it a little bit more than you, but my bracket is messed up. I'm just going to say I'm throwing that away. But this is what happens. You kind of have a little bit more dark horses in the men's tournament, I would say, than you do in the women. The women, we know. LSU, they could have been number 1. Notre Dame, we keep going back to these same teams. Texas, Kentucky, they could have been. Harvard, they still got a top scorer there. She was recruited for a lot of teams. She just chose to go to Harvard, right? But my point is, DH, it's more dark horses I feel like that we don't know that's going to be a surprise. And this is the beauty of March Madness. Now, yeah, I'm going for Florida. I would like to see Duke. Those are my teams right now, right? I've been rocking with them all year. And then, like I said, I've had eyes on BYU. So I would like to see them continue to advance. But it's some teams that are hiding Deasia right now that are surprising us, and that's what's fantastic about this. And what I like this year though, Deasia, is we did get upset with UConn, right? We're not gonna see that, but we still having an equal conversation now from the women to the men. It wasn't always like that, where it's the equal excitement. Yes, college women's basketball has always been huge, but I think it's a lot of attention on both of them equally at this point. And that's where you want it to be. Now, we just want the money to be behind the women. We still praying for that, and we appreciate what y'all doing now. But just keep it going. You got to keep advancing. So that's our take on that.
Is it really equal though for women and men, Sarah? I feel like there's way more viewership with the women though. That was not a
But
good
I'm
statement.
just,
Sierra,
Deasia,
come on now.
this is what I'm saying. You're not understanding what I'm saying. I'm saying that the conversations that we're having, the fact that we can sit here and have so much to say about the women's tournament, this is just from us. We could have normally been, okay, I can go down a laundry list of things about the men's tournament. This is Deasia. We've listened to other podcasts. A lot of people are excited about this tournament for the women. It's not just
But
people in the
here, I'm
women's space
saying
of
that
basketball.
I didn't say it wasn't. What I'm saying is that the women, I think the viewership is still more heightened on the women's side this year. There's more people that's coming to watch the women because of they've had so many number ones. I just really think that, Sierra. You got NBA players. It's not just women that's supporting women. You got other men are supporting women now. You got other companies supporting women. I really think that their tournament is going to watch this. Watch what I say. There's going to be more viewership for the women that final game than the men this year, and I think it was last year. Like it's just a fact.
It was last year.
So we're going to break another record because no matter if it's Juju versus UCLA again, if it's UConn versus UCLA, South Carolina versus UCLA, whoever it is, people are coming out to see it. They want to see whether that's Texas, whoever it is here. It's going to be great basketball. On the men's side, I don't even know who watched it last year on the men's side. Who did view it?
People love to see UConn. I mean,
Sierra,
that's a
I'm just
generational
gonna tell
coach
you
there.
a fact is a fact that it's going to be more people watching the women. And you know how many fans Caitlin Clark had last year compared to the men? Like that was just ridiculous. That was crazy.
Yes, I know. I'm not taking away from that fact. You missed what I was trying to say. I'm saying that it's huge that we can even have this conversation. That's what I'm saying. We keep going back to remember the tournament when they put them little bags and tried to undermine the women compared to the men. We're now getting the respect in the women's space. That's all I'm saying. The conversation has now heightened that finally we can talk about these teams in the same way. I mean that's what I'm saying, Deasia. I do agree that viewership, and let's follow up on that. Let's really follow up on the viewership. We will. In the final game, I think, and I gave credit to Caitlin Clark. Give credit to what her brand, her name, what that has brought to Iowa, to the league, to college women's basketball, to March Madness as a whole. Give credit to that. I'm not taking that away. I'm just saying that finally we can have these type of conversations. It wasn't always like this.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what the women do. I'm even looking forward to the men, but I just know at the end, I'm rooting and I'm looking more forward to the women. It's just a simple fact. It's not going to change. I get excited about women's basketball and I get excited about women's sports in general. I mean, we can transition into that right now, Sarah. Look at the WNBA. Look at the growth that they've made within 20 years. I mean, it's amazing. Just this last year. Since you brought Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese in this league, since Unrivaled have been birthed, look at the WNBA, Sarah. You can't tell me that anybody that's following women's basketball, you're not excited right now. If you're not following women's sports in general, you're not excited. They about to start a new track league for women. They're about to start volleyball, a professional league for women, soccer teams for women, a league that can be televised. And not just starting it, but televised. That's what's important for women's sports. Get behind it so they can win.
I'm behind it. I've been behind it. I've been an advocate. I've been a fan. I've been a partner in it a stakeholder. If you want to take ownership of anything, you've been a fan. I've been in this seat for years, Deasia. I do want to point out and give all the listeners a little backstory, a little bit of some research of what we're talking about. I think the Indiana Fever, and I'm not saying I know this to be a fact. They had 40 nationally televised games, and the highest, the NBA, a comparative NBA team only had 39. They didn't name the team. Could have been the Lakers, could have been the Warriors. We know it was one team that has a lot of nationally televised games. They only had 39 compared to Indiana Fever's 40. So are they riding on the Caitlin Clark wave? Yes, they are. But this is where the league is going as a whole. And I mean, 40 televised games versus 39 DH. I think that's a huge win for the WNBA altogether. Altogether, right? For one organization, how would you say, what is your thoughts behind that?
I mean, I think that's great for Caitlin Clark. I think that's great for the Indiana Fever. But what now the WNBA has to step into? They have to step into, it's not just one team that gets this. You know, it's still bad, Sierra. Our team is the Chicago Sky, and we don't get to see them consistently. If I'm not in Illinois, I can't see them, and that's my team. I think what the NBA does is, the Lakers is my team, Sierra, but I don't have to be in LA to watch them. With the WNBA, you have to be in Chicago to watch the Chicago Sky, and that's kind of on your streaming platforms. You know, that's not great for TV. I don't know if that's streaming. I don't know the difference there, but I want to be able to turn on my game and be able to watch it and not have something pop up. Well, you're not in the radius for this, you know. And I'm not talking about television in that sense. Maybe that's a streaming issue, but whatever it is, just put more variety. Not just Caitlin Clark or who she's playing. Give it to the Aces sometimes. What about the LA Sparks? Let's see Chicago Sky more of their games. Other teams, you have to start seeing more of their games. It doesn't have to be 40. Maybe give them half of what they got. Not that out of that season, Sierra, I was only able to watch 5 games. I'm just saying an arbitrary number. But this, you know, as a fan, you want to be able to see more games. And that, I don't know if that's on television, streaming, whatever. I want to be able to not get a pop-up message saying I'm not in the correct radius to watch my team. And then we'll get, oh, you need a WNBA pass. But see, that's the issue. Why do I need that pass? Because as a simple fan, I should be able to just watch games. Now, if I'm a super fan, we know Granddaddy Sierra, he's a super fan of all the NBA teams. We just super fans of the Lakers. He is a super fan of the Lakers and all the teams. So he has the NBA pass. So he can watch all of the games. But Sierra, I don't have money like that. I'm going to be honest. I cannot pay for that pass. So you got to figure out a way to get to your viewers, whether that's, okay, I'm going to stream on Netflix. I'm going to stream on, I don't know, do something. Do Netflix, do Peacock, whatever. And I think they did Peacock, but fine, do it on streaming platforms that people are already paying for. Don't make it so hard. But then when you do it, put games on there that are not just the Fever. But I'm not taking away nothing from Caitlin Clark. You have to start somewhere. But now next year, let's give a couple of more teams more games as well.
And I like what you said, Deasia. You compared Chicago to, LA. You look at, I think sometimes that's the argument. You look at these bigger markets in bigger cities. Chicago is a big market. LA is a big market. So it shouldn't be a problem for you to stream if you're in Ohio, if you're in Atlanta. It shouldn't be a problem for you to stream in these huge markets. Now, if you was in Wisconsin, that should be a problem. I can understand the argument there of you're trying to watch, if Wisconsin had a WNBA team, you're trying to watch that team. You're in Chicago. These are Chicago, LA, Las Vegas. These are the it's not a lot of teams in the WNBA, but these are your bigger market teams. You should be able to stream that game. You should be able to watch that game, and that's comparative to the Lakers and LA. Those are big markets. You shouldn't have a problem. So I think that the WNBA, the opportunity that they have, it's the business side of it. Like you said, how do they translate to give all of these teams opportunity, especially these big market teams, Chicago, LA, Vegas, Atlanta? How do you get that? How do you give these teams that have a huge viewing? These are metropolitan teams. How do you give them a shot to have nationally viewed games? It should be dispersed. Now I do think that Caitlin Clark carries the brand, and Indiana Fever, they drafted her. They should, they should have the benefit of her. But it's also, you got Angel Reese on on Chicago Sky. I mean, she's huge for women's basketball. You got Aja Wilson in Las Vegas. All of these teams have their huge names, these huge personalities, Deasia, where people want to see them play, right? And that's just the business opportunity of it. So, and I think they're growing, like you said. They are growing at a faster rate than the NBA was. Go back and do your history. Go back and watch. Um, they are growing at a faster rate. This league is still young. Only in its young 20 years of this league, they're still growing. But now it's the chance to put some money behind it, and that's why the WNBA is threatening to strike. How do you feel on that?
Well, I mean, I feel like that's just like any industry. If you're not getting paid what you should, if you're not getting what you're worth, you got to sit out. Unfortunately, sometimes I heard this that Amazon workers was trying to strike, and what did Jeff Bezos say? Well, I got the robots. This would be a perfect time to test them out. Now, in basketball, there's no robots. So, if they sit out, it's going to be a hit. But let's not forget, the men had to do that. They had to go on a strike, and that worked for them. So, that's just regular everyday life, Sierra. Somebody going to strike, and, the owners of whatever league, whatever industry that is, you got to make a decision. And that's what the WNBA needs to
And
move
it
forward.
goes back to principles of supply and demand.
Yeah, if that's what the WNBA needs to go for, I'm all with the players. I mean, you're the ones that's making the league. Like, really, the owners are the ones that's paying you, but the players are what make the league. If you don't have players, then what do you have? You won't have a league. So they have to adjust, they have to compromise, they have to meet those demands. And all they asking for is simple things. Can we get flights? They fixed that issue. Oh, can we get better hotels? I don't know if they fixed that. I'm not in the WNBA, but one of the main things is the money. Just fix the salary. Why was Unrivaled paying more than what the WNBA? That's a simple fix. I don't think everybody should be getting $1 million contract. I don't even think that everybody should be making 200, 500,000 with the WNBA. But I think bare minimum, Sierra, all those players should be making 100K. Start there. Start at that bare minimum spot. And it's I think 100K is fine. And I don't know, maybe some of them, I mean, Sierra, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, $1 million contracts. You got to pay based on what they're worth in their play. So some players can get paid more just because of who they are. That's a big factor in the WNBA. You don't always see that in the NBA because if a player, this is how the WNBA works versus the men's. The men's, you get paid based on your work in the game, right? Based on how you play. And that's how you become this celebrity. That's not how the women's work. If Angel Reese somehow see her go down today, she's still going to be who she is in the WNBA. They still going to have a spot for her on the Chicago Sky just because of who she is. If Caitlin Clark, I know a lot of fans don't want to hear this, but if Caitlin Clark blows out her knee, she's still going to get paid $2 and $3 million from the Fever, from them. Not talking about her other sponsors because of who she is. The WNBA, you can get paid in two ways. This is how they should get paid. They're not getting paid at all right now. The way Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark is making their money is based on sponsorships, but this is how they should be getting paid. All players, not just them two. Based on how well they play, that should be one tier. If you play well, you get paid well. Then another tier is if you're face of the league. That doesn't have to do with how you're playing, but I would assume that if you're face of the league, you're playing well. So it kind of bounces back. But if for some reason they just stop playing, but they still the face of the league, then they should still be getting paid. So that's why that bare minimum should be set at 100K. But those like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, they should make $1 million. Asia Wilson, $1 million. Arike, $1 million. Skylar Diggins, $1 million. Those are the contracts that they should have. I mean, why is it this not going across the league? And then some people want to say, well, we don't play military that much. Yeah, we don't, but we play NBA players that much. Just focus on that fact.
And yeah, a lot of people try to knock off what you just said, and we gotta. Is it crazy that we're paying other professional NFL, MLB, NBA that much, but y'all always want to throw in civil workers. You always want to throw in military, police, firefighters, nurses. You always want to throw in this. We can go down the line. First of all these industries should be paid what they're worth. But DH, when you use the likeness of a player and it's not compensated, that's when the problem is. And I totally agree. You can say all you want about Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, but their likeness is carrying them to the face of this league. Aja Wilson, her likeness And Deasia, they used it for the longest with Diana Taurasi. They used it for the longest with Candace Parker. They was trying to use it with Maya Moore, but she stepped away from the league. They used it for the longest. And this is not just WNBA. This is track when it's on the Olympics, when it's Olympic time. They use the likeness of athletes until it's beneficial, but they're not paid. We can go down the line in women's sports. They're not paid. Serena Williams, a lot of that money is coming from the tournament and her sponsorship deals. Is the sport itself paying them? She's getting paid, Deja, more so off of her sponsorships. But when we think about those leagues that need growth, I think the money is there with tennis because you have a lot of investors into that. But see, the WNBA is trying to grow. You gotta still pay these brands. The corporations are what can do this. You gotta pay these players. I was listening to Sue Bird and Megan's podcast, right, Deja, and they was talking about the money factor because a lot of people feel a way. You kind of almost feel offended when you get into these conversations, right? But what they were saying is pretty much this same take that we're saying is you got to put the business side behind it. And Sue Bird told a funny story, like she has an investor friend that she was just joking and saying, "Come on, let's buy a WNBA team." And he said, "No, not at the time. This is not the right time." And she goes on to say, like, he tells me all the time, "Dog, I should have bought that team with you." And what they probably would have paid for it is crazy. Now the WNBA, what she said, is worth $250 million. I'm sure it is, and that goes to show like the accumulation of all of these teams. You're not One team itself is not worth $250 million, but what it would have taken them to buy the team might have been $1 million. This was years ago, right? And she was joking, saying he would have put everything and I would have gave $5. But what would have been the appreciation of her investment, his investment? The league is worth $250 million. So yes, the league is growing. But since the league is growing, you gotta pay these women. Pay them. I agree, Deasia, what you said. When you're not being paid, the question is to strike. Now, other industries that have someone else, like you see Amazon, you see more of these factory jobs, you see a lot of that type of the blue collar workers, you see a lot of the tech jobs, when they sit out, they have a replacement. It's no replacement. So who actually loses on this? The players and the fans.
Yeah,
Because you don't have a
you right about
replacement.
Sierra, you right about that. It hits the players and the fans. So the players, they really got all the power in their hands. The unfortunate part about it is we know that the WNBA is just such a small league. It's a small like body of people, so it's just going to be interesting to see how they can make those adjustments with not that much to pull from. They don't have a lot. We looking at 250 million here, but I bet you pull the numbers on the NBA, it's billions of dollars. So that 250 is probably still not
one team. That's not even one team.
If you say you got 50 players in the WNBA, which we know is probably more than that, but say you got on each team you got 12, and I think you got about 16 teams, right, Sierra? Say that you give each player $1 million. Now, okay, you left with, you cannot do that. They can't do that. So I would say there's some type of, you can't pay everybody $1 million. They can't do that. They can't afford that right now. Whereas the NBA, they can afford that. They have billions of dollars. The WNBA, they can't afford millions of dollars, but I think they could play their top players. That may be half of the league. 25 million out of 250. That means you just paying them 10%. Sierra, what's wrong with that?
And that's what you should. They should at least, Deasia, this is the talent. They're the product. Without them, you don't have anything. That's what they're missing. That's what, when you think about it, first of all of us in the space of, we know what this league is. We appreciate it. We respect the game. We respect what women's basketball, where it's going. We know that they're the product. But like I said, who loses in it? The players, Deasia, and the consumer. We no longer have anyone to watch. And we got to go back to this. Unrivaled shows that there's an option that this can be done. But I agree, it has to be a tier factor. But what is the problem? Every other league has that. MLB, NFL, soccer, any other league has it. But when it comes to women, now you shortchange women. It just doesn't make any sense. And what they need to start doing is they need to get a lot of consumers, and I'm just throwing this out there. A lot of consumers have money, Deasia, right? It's consumers with millions of dollars, billions of dollars. Why aren't you looking for investors outside of the stakeholders of the league? Look outside of that. Maybe money will be raised. But you have to, I think they're trying with the brand deals, with what's happening with the NIL, all of that is trying. But you can't make excuses of why it can't be done, because we see it done in all other spaces, especially with the men. Everybody on in the men, if you look at the Lakers, DH, everybody even on that, and that's a huge team with a lot of money, right? They're not all probably making $1 million. I can tell you somebody, one of the G League players, or one of the, and maybe look up these facts, DH. They have a tier system, right? Other teams do as well. And, you know, I just think the conversation ends here, DH, that something needs to be done. It's no excuse at this point. Those women need to be paid.
Yeah, it
End
was
all be
one
all.
thing. It was, I know you keep going back to what Sue Bird and Megan A was talking about. One thing I like what they said, and I think this is why this money factor is such a big thing, is because I remember when we was coming up, obviously we all had, if you play basketball, you want to get to the highest level. If you ran track, you want to get to the highest level. Volleyball, whatever sport, if you really love it, you want to get to the highest level. So when we was coming up, we look at, WNBA players, they making 20, 30K. That has been going on for all these years here. This is just their salary. So you got people saying, well, why do y'all want to go to the WNBA? They don't make that much. Now, as a kid, we don't understand that. We just know that we love basketball, right? Now, we know that our aspirations at the WNBA, that's just not in the cards for us, Sierra. But Sierra, what happens to those kids where they potentially that will come to fruition? When you don't have that money factor there, it's like, where can I, if this league dies out, which I know it's not, but say for some reason the money, it just never comes 5 years from now. A kid now is probably 10, 15, they start looking at it, well, I made the All-American, I'm on a great college team, what's next, WNBA? You want to see that progression of, I have something to look forward to. But when you're making this money, Sierra, and you seeing that, I can just go be a doctor and I can make 300K, or I can go and I can build a business and I can make $1 million doing that, being an entrepreneur. I can go stream now and I can make $1 million doing that. Where you don't have that aspirational dream, and that's kind of what Sue Bird, they were saying in a different way, saying, this is what basketball, women's basketball, sports was supposed to do. You supposed to see a person, like granddaddy had aspirations, daddy had aspirations, we had aspirations. It's just aspirations passed down. But when you get this obstacle in the way of the money, it puts a kid at like, well, what am I going for when I don't get paid that much? And kids are smart nowadays here. They got iPads, they got all these things that we didn't have. So they can go and say, well, I'm good at playing NBA 2K. or WNBA 2K. I don't need to go and play WNBA basketball. I can just go play tournaments on the EA Sports. That's in college now, see, EA Sports. So why do I gotta go do that? And I don't have to break a sweat doing that. You see, so that gap, the money has to become less of a factor so that we can just have that generational step up of my dreams are your dreams. You could make it to the WNBA, but if you keep that there, you're going to make it very hard for a young girl to be able to see, well, I can make it to the WNBA and make good money. It's something about going to the WNBA, but what about going there and making the money?
Yeah, you need to make what you deserve.
Yeah, and that hasn't been done.
They deserve it. And I salute those players that have stood in the gap all this time and continue to push this league forward. Even the coaches, the fans, all of us, DH, that have held it down and continue to ride with it. But it's going to get to a point where we're almost there to impasse, where now it's either you got to do it or,
Yeah,
you
and
got to move in this direction.
I don't agree with them people saying, well, Angel Reese, you could sit out. Like, are you watching basketball or not? If Angel Reese sits out, that's a huge loss for us from Chicago, Sierra. Chicago Sky, our team is taking a huge hit, but just the league in general. If you say that statement, I just don't think that you're watching basketball. Because if you just see her improve over a year in Unrivaled, and then not to mention she had a great rookie season. So, okay, sit Angel out and see how the league does. See how they do.
Yeah, it's like sitting out. This is like sitting out. And let me give you a good comparison. This is like sitting out KD and her play that they compare basketball wise. But when you have this culture shattering player, she connects all of these different, if you want to talk about fashion, you want to talk about music, you want to talk about basketball itself, you want to talk about business, you want to talk about streaming, podcasting, all of these different spaces. She's the piece. Caitlin Clark, might be the name. She might be the household name. But Angel Reese is the face. Like, we know who she is. I bet you, DH, if you ask your little cousin, who is Angel Reese, they know. They might not even know her for basketball. But they know who she is for something else. So, yeah, sit her out. Sit her out and watch how the league is going to miss her. But those that are truly, like you said, watching, everybody got their opinion. But for people that don't really watch it, for you to say that, you've taken it away from those that are watching, that appreciate players like her. And are
Yeah, and that's
compared.
what I don't like, Sierra. It's just like the LeBron versus MJ conversation. It's like, okay, if we say LeBron, then somebody saying, well, what do you feel about MJ? They both can be really great. So you don't have to pick one over the other. They played in a different time frames anyway. But Sierra, if I say LeBron is my GOAT, that's not taking away nothing that MJ did. He is a GOAT. He just not my GOAT. So when I say, okay, I like Angel Reese's game, I really like Caitlin Clark too, but I somehow seem to see that on the internet all the time. If you make a post about Angel Reese, or if I make something about Caitlin Clark, I got to see a ton of hate mail for Angel Reese. That's you
And
know
that's
what I'm
not fair.
saying? You
Yeah,
can like them both. That's all
that's
I'm
not
saying.
But that's not fair to either one of them. And it's not fair to basketball in itself. Why do we always have to put, first of all, they both too young in their career. We don't know what's going to be. They just got off their rookie season. Why are you even comparing them? They are probably better friends than most people think. They have, first of all, we know they got a lot of respect for each other, but what about them makes people want to compare them? They don't even play alike. They don't have a lot of comparing factors. It's just that the factor that they have is they both were winning players. They both were great players in college, but it's a lot more players that you can compare Angel Reese to and Caitlin Clark. But I just want to pull this conversation full circle. The reason why I compared it to KD is because when he's not in the league right now, people feel that. When you don't hear nothing from KD and he goes silent, it's like something is missing, right? That's the same effect that Angel Reese will have. But I agree with you what you're saying, Deasia. Why are we even? It's like, why are they even synonymous? They should not be.
I just think if one player do this, and people don't realize this about the WNBA, it's so close knit that if one player sits out, whether that's Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, Asia Wilson, Enrique, whether that's Dejanay, whoever sits out, or Skylar Diggins, they just go behind, they back each other up. That's why Unrivaled was so successful. They literally backed up Breanna Stewart and Queen Fee and said, we're going to make this league really great. They're going to back them up. So if you see Angel Reese sit out, whether that's even if Dejanay decides, I'm not playing, I want to get paid, they're going to back her up. If you did not watch Angel Reese's podcast when Dejanay was sitting there, she literally said, in other words, that she's with her with that. We may have to do what we got to do. And she said she was in the meetings and some things are coming up. So if one player does this here, they're going to back them up. Even players that's not in the league. You don't think Diana Taurasi going to back them up? We've been asking for this for years. Lisa Leslie, we've been asking for this. Don Staley. This ain't started just now. This been going on for years. They want the players to have more. Don't you think, Sarah, Don Staley, when her players leave after 4 years, she want to know that they going on to something better? Right now, they're leaving to not something better. That's just the fact of it. They making more money in college NIL. Cheryl Miller literally said, why rush out of college? Why you gonna rush to the WNBA? To not get paid, to not make that team? Guess what? You off the team, now what? That'll be a situation of loving basketball. She was at I saw her at the checkout line, girl.
You know what's crazy though, Deasia? We don't have these conversations, and yeah, I was finally giving our kudos. But see, this is why basketball is such a. We can go on and on because we don't say this with the men, Deasia. You don't. They're one and done. We don't even have these. If they're that good, they're one and done, and that's that. We're girl, stay in there. Stay with your team. Stay in the college. If you don't like that team, move around in that portal. Go somewhere else. You're not saying, girl, go on to the WNBA. Go and get out of there. Go and be one. That's not what we're saying. But with men, I just listened to Paul Pierce, they was talking about Cooper Flag. If they was talking about Cooper Flag, the dude off of, I think he was in Texas or Tennessee, the number one play, their number one guy. Like, would you tell this if you was their dad, if you was their mom? What would be your conversation? What would be your advice? Would you tell them go ahead and get out? Paul Pierce and KG, they both agree. Like, yeah, if that was my son, we gonna just wrap this up. I'm about to take him away from the college life, take him away. We about to go get off the grid, just focus on basketball. You about to be in meetings, you about to learn how to become a pro at this point as a 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid. But it's a different conversation when we talk about women's basketball. We saying, girls, stay in the league. Get your degree, girl. Go on and make your money there. Go on and build your name, build your brand. Find a team. If that situation not working out for you, go here. But it's never the conversation like, I'm about to take you away and we just gonna lock in on basketball. No, because the money isn't there, DH. They don't have the luxury of it. And it's not fair. It's not right. But these conversations have to be had from even just viewers, DH, from fans, for people that want to see these are conversations that have to be had before things change. So
Yeah, you made a great point. I mean, when you brought that conversation up, my mind goes to Bronny. He had a heart issue. And what did LeBron do? He took him away from college. What was college going to do for him? But guess what? If unfortunately, and I'm knocking on wood, I'm saying, hopefully this don't happen. God, please allow this not to happen to none of these women players or no players. But if that happens to one of these women out there, Sierra, playing, they don't have a choice to, okay, let me step away and go play WNBA. Whether, I don't know, Lisa Leslie could have been their mom. She physically cannot pull them from college to go to the WNBA to go develop on a G League. There's no G League in a WNBA. There's no development. You just got to be ready. And that may not be an option. You're going to pull them away to make what? 20,000? If you really want them to develop, college is your G League for the WNBA. College is where they develop for women, Sierra. They don't develop. They don't have no stepping stone. You can't have the luxury of pulling a player away like there is in an NBA. That's Sierra. People can hate on Bronny all they want. That was the best move that LeBron could do. What did you want him down there to do? What? To keep playing? You may only see these teams here. They may go to the Final Four once, and that's it. What is that going to do for his career? He's doing better now. He's developing. But the women, they don't have that option. You must develop in college. If you don't do it there, you can't go and develop on the WNBA teams. You got to be ready to make that team after the draft. They don't have a chance. I mean, NBA players here, they have two options, G League or NBA, after the draft. WNBA, they don't have that. So that was a good point you made.
That's kind of a problem too. Like, why don't they have that? Why don't they have something? But I'm not saying that they need to, but it's just like, does anybody ever think that it should be something for those? Because it's a lot of opportunities that I missed where they don't make the team, they don't stay on the team. But if they had a league in between, maybe they can develop. But it's so many conversations, and that's where where it's just like, it's not the same. It's still a lot of opportunities. And the biggest one is the money. But this conversation can go so many different directions if you want to think of it. You brought up a great point with Bronny. Everybody is not that fortunate though. It could be something else. You can blow your knee out. But if you have some training behind you, some rehabbing, some great you coming from a great school, maybe you will be able to work it back. But women, we just don't have that opportunity. And those are and DH, I'm never saying that you shouldn't get a degree. I'm always saying that go ahead and get your degree. But we don't have the opportunity to say we can be one and done if you that good. DH, if you a McDonald's All-American and basically you a top 10 player, if you was Hannah Hidalgo, she don't got Paige Beckers. Juju, she's a professional now. They can't
Haley
be
Van
one and
Lee.
done. Right, they can't be one and done.
Flaw
But people,
J, Sierra.
Flaw J. They can't be one and done. And then you got people saying, well, why is Haley still playing? She should be, because the opportunity isn't there. Why would she give up making money versus going somewhere and not making money. It's just this conversation can take so many different turns. The point about it is it's not the same. And when is it going to be? That's the question. And
Yeah,
that's
and
up
pay
in the
them.
air.
Pay them, pay them, pay them. That's the end of it. Pay them. Play them
But
players. They
Deasia,
deserve
you
it.
know what's you know, and I'm just this is the last thing I'm gonna say. Even though when you get to that level, the college level, that things start separating for the men and women. Your kids, your future kids, how do you train your girl versus your son? How do you do that when you know that it's going to be a point when this is going to be a fork in the road? How do you do that? What do you say to her? Because a lot of times women outwork men. You do. You just don't have the athletic ability. But most of the time, Deasia, your equal counterpart as you're getting older, you're probably outworking him. What do you say to your daughter? What would you say?
I would tell her, like, remember yourself. Like, you know that it's not gonna be easy from here. In fact, there's gonna be more doors. And that's no matter what you do, whether it's basketball, it could be basketball, track, it could be doggone, you could be going to be a doctor. I don't know what you're gonna do, but you still gonna face those, you're going to face these type of obstacles, and you got to be ready for it. Whether that's, I mean, Sierra, it's 4 years to be a doctor, medical school, it's 4 years of college. You still going to face these walls for women. You can't just jump these steps. You must prepare and get better. You got to take what you get and you got to improve. And if you don't like where you are, you got the luxury of moving around. But other than that, you got to stick with it. As a woman, you could not just give up. You cannot just bounce around and go up the elevator without putting in the work. You got to put in the work, and it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be harder than than the person across from you, and that could be a guy. You're going to have to work twice as hard. And don't let you be black. Then you really going to have to work hard.
And so, what do you tell your son?
And I tell him, you still got to work hard. I mean, that conversation is a little bit different. It is different, but it's not, I'm not a person that's going to say any route is easy. You know, there's going to be different things that a male is going to face than a woman, but I don't think it's about equality there. I think the things that they have to face is being in themselves, being able to stick with something, being able to double down on this is what I want to do. Because, you know, everybody, let's put it here. You see top players have that option to one and done, but if you're not a top player, you must get better just like a woman. You gotta, just like the women have to do. You may have to commit to 4 years, 3 years. You gotta commit. So if you may not be the best, so you better figure out how you're going to do it. Either you're going to commit for the 4 or you're going to be really good and get one and done. But that takes effort either way. That's what I'll be saying. None of it, you can't just skip steps, whether you're a guy or a woman. But we know it's just harder for a woman, so that's what my conversation alters.
Yeah, and I like what you said. You gotta, adversity comes on both sides. First of all of this, to be a professional at anything, if you want to be a doctor, you want to be a nurse, you want to be a swimmer, Olympic swimmer, all of this, it's a point of excellence that you have to attain, Deasia. To be a surgeon, you cannot make mistakes. You got a life in your hands, right? To be a sharpshooter, Steph Curry, you have to aspire to excellence. So in anything that you do, you're going to face adversity, but it comes down to, are you prepared for that? And that's all of the work that you don't see. That's all of the hours in the gym. Yeah, that's all of the time that you work on your skills. Whether you are in healthcare, whether you are, Deasia, you're in the field, whether you are in business, you can be a tech person, you could be a scientist. All of those hours of research, reading, you have to work hard. And I think that it is a different conversation for women. But that doesn't mean that the fact that it's an easy road in anything. The fact that these players that we're talking about, it took a level of excellence. It's one in a million to make it to the level of become a professional, or even to get to college. And we just highlighting today, that these teams, they have this beautiful opportunity to play in front of national fans for the NCAA. And I mean, to get to the next level, It takes a lot.
That's the beauty of it, Sierra. That's what we like to see. That's why we like to see those Cinderella stories. You like to see a McNeese. Look at the manager, Sierra. Like, he has his own NIL deals. I looked today, he had like 6 of them. One of them was like Buffalo Wild Wings or something. I don't know, but I'm just saying, Sierra, you don't just have to play the sport. It's everything around it. But shout out to the people that are playing. Shout out to the coaches. Shout out to the trainers, the people the nutritionists, those
The
that are
people
with
that
them.
we don't see.
Yeah,
And
shout out to the parents, that's going to the games, those that can't make it, but just these are your kids. Like, shout out to them. Like, I really, hats off to the players. Everybody that's since the NCAA on men's and women's side, shout out to you and take full advantage of that experience. It don't come twice. It don't come easy. We know that you had to work for that. And we just wish you all success. We know that there's got to be some losers and there's going to be some winners, but we wish you all success. And we just fans,
yeah,
we like to see it. So keep putting on a great show so we can continue to talk about it.
I like that you highlighted. The manager from McNeese. I think he go by Aura. That's his nickname. But that just showing the edge that the sport itself is growing. Like basketball, even though the history, all of the tradition of college basketball, the tournament, it's been big, right? But the fact that you have other players, other people, I'm not saying players, other people in this space, other personalities, other fans, supporters, the people that we don't see, that they're getting compensated, because he's bringing eyes to that team, right, DeAsia? And the fact that he might have a chance to make hundreds of thousands of dollars on a deal using his name, that's huge. And you got a lot of people at the high school level, DH. I got managers on my team. They might not have the talent or even, really, they might not have it to run, right? But there's a space for them. As a manager, they are a big part of the team. And for them to say, hey, I can go out and I can do this in college, or it's a spot for me in college where I can possibly, I can share in that moment. Deasia, he's all over. This aura is all over, right? But he can share in that moment. Those are moments that he won't forget. We won't forget. We'll remember this tournament because one of the reasons he's there in 2025, the 2024, 2025 tournament, he was there and they highlighted his NIL deals. But that's an opportunity. I like that because it shows that now we're having other parts that can make something of what this tournament, and that's where you want, Deasia. You want everybody not gonna play, but you want to hear about the dietitian. You want to hear about the athletic trainer. You want to hear about the manager, the assistant coach. Those people that don't have the spotlight. It's great to hear from them that, hey, they got a story too, and people can relate to that. Just like you can relate to the players, you can relate to that, Deasia.
Yeah, it's a lot of people that's going to be relating to them. And I think people, they also, they just really fans of the sports. And I want to shout out the fans for just, growing these leagues, whether that's women and men. Now, one league that is growing right now as we transition is track. The Grand Slam is coming up. That'll be hosted in 4 different cities and it's worldwide. So, track is always international. It's not one of those sports where you
It's
just
an international friendly sport as well.
Yeah, you get your best competitions when Jamaica is going against the U.S. That's where it comes from. So, I don't know the 4 cities offhand, but I know one of them I think was Miami. But, just 4 cities, and these athletes, they're on contract to do it. So usually they could just sign up for a meet, I guess, and they don't have to necessarily run if they don't feel like it. And that's what track is. We ran track, so we know that. Like, it's all based on how you feeling that day. A lot of it is a lot of things that go into track as far as where you at in your training cycle, where you at in your performance cycle, your racing cycle. You may not be at your peak at that meet, so maybe the coach pulls you and say, hey, we just gonna practice another week, or I want you to rest. That happens in track, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's how you see that athletes they get to the trials and they make the Olympic team. It's very strategic in that way. It's not like basketball where they're gonna play every game. Track, it doesn't happen that way. And I'm pretty sure cross country, the field events, all of those are the same. You don't compete at every time. But this Grand Slam, they signed a contract, so they must compete. So even if they're not feeling good, they can't say, well, we're out of it. And that happens in track, but this time you can't do that. And it's good for fans. So this is an event. It's for the fans. It's for us to be able to watch. And we're fans of track. Like, I love to watch it. It's just that I don't get to watch it much. Why? Because it's not on TV a lot. But this is supposed to be on TV. It's supposed to be nationally televised so people can watch it. So, Sierra, when I ask you, when is the next meet coming on, you'll be able to finally tell me, and not that we're searching, we're going to text somebody, text a friend like, hey, when's your meet coming up? That's
Or
not
you
good.
waiting for the
Or
NCAA
or
tournament.
you got somebody sending us the link to go watch them run professionally. Like, no, we don't have to stream on some buffered system. We could just watch on TV like we do for the Olympics. Just watch on TV and be fans, not waiting for a link or got to go look up something. No, that we want, as fans of tracks here, we want to watch it more consistently, and that's what this Grand Slam League is doing. It's allowing us fans to watch it consistently. It's keeping the athletes accountable. I don't know if that part is good or bad because I know track a lot into it. But I think overall it's going to help the viewership. It's going to help the fan base for that sport. And they solving another issue that the WNBA needs to solve too. It's the money. They're paying them more. When they win, it's like the Diamond League. The Diamond League, they get paid a certain amount for winning. Well, this Grand Slam League, every race that they win, they get paid. So instead of making $10,000 for a race, I think they can make up to $50,000. That's good money if you win. And that's just like what Unrivaled showed us. Put the money behind the players and they'll perform well. So guess what? One of the athletes literally said, I'm doing it for the money. Like, that's what they do. And that they figured it out, Sierra, and I'm so glad. I can't wait to watch it. It's in 4 different cities. Of course, I'm going to be cheering, for people that we know that are in it. That's just how it is. But I love the sport. And I like to watch it because it highlights the growth that track has made as well. You get to see the strides that they've made outside of the Olympics. So that's what's going to be interesting. I think even a Diamond League, you got to go back and watch YouTube videos, but now we can watch it up close and personal. And those inspiring athletes who want to be on the next level of track, they got something to look forward to. For us here, it just so happened when we was in our peak, Olympics was out. But what if that wouldn't have happened? Our coach was literally telling us, hey, I want you to go watch the 400. I want you to go watch this race. I want you to go watch the 400, right? We just was watching Sonia Richards win the Olympics that year. But what if it wasn't that year? I really think we got a lot better that year because we was just watching the race and he was teaching us of how to finally be a student of that sport. Sierra, to understand the race pattern of the 400, that took time, and a lot of it was watching races that was not our own. But what happens when an athlete don't have that? You got to go and search on YouTube for all type of stuff, but that time it was just on TV. That needs to happen consistently, and that's what Grand Slam is doing. They're going to allow, you going to see the growth in more athletes, or even saying, hey, I want to do track. I want to run.
Yeah, it's another one of those, just like we talked about women's college basketball, where you have a lot of athletes that are at that professional level. They choose not to do it professionally. One, because the money wasn't there, but two, Deasia, you kind of, a lot of them, let's be honest, and I love track. I love watching it, right? It's a very difficult sport. I have a lot of huge respect. I think it's an honor to be able to get to that professional level. It's a very difficult sport. And for you to become a professional, it is very hard. It takes a lot. But I think that just like a gap, Deasia, you want to follow even people that we know personally, Deasia, you want to follow them. But you also, and you just don't want to see it on social media, Deasia. You want to see them on TV. You want to see their big moments, them racing, right? And them throwing, them doing their events, them jumping. We know people personally. But for those people that we don't know, it's a sport, Deasia, where clearly the excitement is there. People want to see it. It's probably one of the most televised events in the Olympics. It's only a few: gymnastic, track, swimming, and then basketball. But that depends on whose country. But for track, it's in Jamaica, it's the biggest thing, right? For most countries, they do compete in track, right? So people want to watch it. That's not the problem. I think that's more of a problem with basketball. That's not the problem with track. They need to pay athletes what they deserve. So I think that it's a start. I think that it's great that people can actually go. If you're in Miami, Deasia, you'll have a chance to go to a professional meet we don't. The Olympics is every 4 years, and it's normally in another country. How many times can you go and see somebody run, Deasia? You won't. But you can go to a NBA game. You can go to a baseball game, DH, and see players from all over the world play. Why you can't go and see your track athletes, right? And that's what you want to be able to say. Wow, as a young girl, it would have meant so much to be able to see. I can do this. She's here. I can do this, right? You. That's what they're. That's to me the biggest thing that they're doing for the sport. You're giving us a chance to see, okay, there's my girl. I get to see her put feet on the track. I don't have to wait 4 years, Deasia, for the Olympics. And then it's hard to come back. It's very hard to come back. It's like the hardest thing you can do in sports. It's one of the hardest things to come back to another Olympics. It takes a lot. And we keep saying that, Deasia, that it's a lot that goes into this. But that, you know how much training they got to do? Well, we know because, we just know, right? How much lifting. You got to eat right. It got to be a whole bunch of factors. You got to have money. You got to be able to compete well to even go to a trial, DH. Then you got to do well at the trial to make the team. It's like all of these different factors for you to go back to another Olympics. You don't got to wait for that now. Now you can see your favorite athlete compete at their next Grand Slam. And that's huge. That's
And
wonderful.
that ain't gonna do nothing but help them too. Like the more, yes, we know that sometimes they don't run because of something as far as their training schedule. But see, they can change. They can like make a small adjustment and say, hey, let's use these Grand Slams to prepare for the Worlds. Let's use these Grand Slams when it comes around the Olympic year. Let's use it to prepare for making the trials. I assume that's what they're going to do. So it's just great for the sport. Another
And
league that's
business wise, I wanted to say this, DH, business wise, if you're an athlete, why wouldn't it make sense to run in a meet that you're going to have a chance to get paid versus a meet that you're just doing it more so for just to
for the
say that
training.
for a trial? Why wouldn't you do this where you can get paid and you're doing a trial? It makes more sense to put it on your schedule like that, right?
Yeah. And another league that's doing something similar, they don't have a Grand Slam, but they just emerging as a league, is volleyball. It's going to be a huge league. It's for professional league for volleyball players on the women's side, and that's actually one of the most watched sports for women. It's volleyball, and it's different than the men. The women are more watched on that in that sport. So women's volleyball is more watched than men's volleyball. So that's just a sport where people just want to watch the women do it. And that's huge. I think they said some of the things that are, a little couple barriers with them is that they don't have a true all-star. But I think that's going to happen once the league emerges. You're going to have your favorite player. So I'm looking forward to having my favorite volleyball player. I know in college watching it, those games was always exciting. And now they're still selling out in colleges. They're putting they're pulling volleyball courts on a college stadium, in the center of a college stadium, and they're selling that out. So that's just easy money. That should have been happening, but it's emerging now, and we're looking forward to that. And
Yeah,
I
sure.
hope they get it right. They should be playing them, and I believe so. Because why build a league that you're not paying them?
Yeah, and if you go, yeah, when we was in college, we'd go to random, we'd watch swimming, we'd go to softball. We had friends and all of them, right? But our favorite teams to watch was volleyball. It was like the most exciting, and we love basketball. If y'all haven't noticed, we're exploding with like our passion for basketball. But to be honest, volleyball it was up there for us, wasn't it, DH? Like it was fun to watch. If we never had watched we didn't watch volleyball in high school. We never went to any games. We had friends that played, but our best friend was a volleyball player. But we didn't go to the games, and we was missing out. I don't know if it was like that in high school, but it was like it was amazing watching it in college. So I just never understood that. So it just makes perfect sense. I would invest in that.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it, Sierra. I can't wait to see the players and just to see the Nike get behind it, Adidas, whatever big, brand is going to get behind it. And, I hope they win. So I'm
And it's
looking
another
forward to
one of
that.
those sports in the Olympics, DH, where It's huge. I mean, it's one of the last sports that continues to go from the beginning to the end, and people follow it all the way through. People love to see beach volleyball. You love to watch the USA team. I mean, I just don't. That just makes perfect sense. That should have been happening. So it's great to know that a professional league is emerging, because I think that they missed out. A lot of players we know, DHJ, were really good in college. Probably would have loved to play in some way and professionally.
Yeah. So our final topic that we're gonna transition to is just, we talked about volleyball, we talked about basketball, the emerging leagues, we talked about track, and then there's soccer. Sierra, how do you feel about that one?
I think that soccer is always had its place. I think it's one of the front runners that's carrying women's sports. Of course, it has an international piece that is undeniable with the World Cup, Deasia. In other countries, it's huge, right? And I'm not saying it has anything to do with the men's soccer league. I just think that internationally, soccer as a whole is a bigger sport than basketball. It's more known internationally. That's the international sport, soccer. So the fact that they're expanding here nationally, that's just making way for players to come here and make money doing what they are good at, right? It makes sense. Why wouldn't Chicago have two women's soccer teams? Why wouldn't LA have two women's soccer teams? It's bringing money, and it's an international sport. Every country probably has a soccer team more so than a basketball team, right? Why wouldn't they do it in the US? Business wise, it just makes perfect sense. The fans are here, Deasia. You look at people, they want to watch their sport. And the sport that translate across universally, that translate, I hate to say it, is soccer. People can just understand. It's like a language that people speak. It's soccer for some reason. So business wise, you need to expand. Put money behind it. I think Kansas, they was one of the first to start expanding a year or two ago, and we only know this. If we throw anything out that doesn't make sense in this, I'm just gonna say this. We was in Kansas City last year for the Beyonce concert, and they was building a stadium. We had like a tour guide driving us to our hotel, and he was saying that Patrick Mahomes' wife had a lot to do with that stadium being built. They were buying they were partners in buying that for women's soccer at the time. We only know this because we was going to see Beyonce, so that's just random. But they was kind of like the first to start this expansion. You see all these investors. Serena has got in on it. Issa Rae. It's a lot of people that are now dabbling from other entities, because it's there, Deasia. And why wouldn't you want to support women? They need to be paid more. I mean, I think Megan Rapinoe, she has said that, but to me, they have the viewership more so. Well, not the viewership, they have the popularity. I would say that. That's the word. They're the more popular sport over basketball right now. And I'm just talking internationally. So anybody you ask, if I ask a friend, somebody that doesn't really watch sports in general, if I ask them what you prefer to watch, basketball or soccer, and I'm just asking, I have friends in different cultures, they'll probably say soccer. That it's just the more popular sport for women. I don't agree with it, but that's just what it is. Yes, you shook your head at that.
Yeah, because I don't agree with that either. I don't see how soccer is more exciting than basketball, but I'm biased, so what do I
Well,
care?
we're biased, Deasia, but if we took a poll, the truth is the truth.
Sarah, I mean,
Truth
it
be
may be the
told.
truth, but I think nationally, I think basketball is still a huge sport.
Nationally. But if you ask anyone, like if we put a poll out, Deasia, if we put a poll out across different cultures, people are going to answer in the way of soccer. That's just
Okay, that's fine, Sierra, but they missing out on basketball. They probably should watch it more and figure it out, because it's a
Of
great
course
game.
they are. Of course they are. It's the best
Yeah,
game there is.
yeah. Now let's kind of finish up. We'll finish up with what we've been urging to talk about. We keep referencing them. They had a peak of a league, a peak of a season. It was their
Am I
inaugural
making a
season.
you? Am I making a you?
I don't know what you're doing, but it was their inaugural season. And this season, it blew our mind. it was more than what we could have expected, and it ended with kind of a surprise. And we talking about Unrivaled. We thought that the Lunar Owls were going to go on to win a championship. They were 13-1, but guess what? They lost in the semis, and they did not go on. The Vinyl beat them, and they went to play Rose, and then Rose surprisingly won a championship. But maybe it was just the Chelsea Gray season late. It was Lunar Owls for the full season, but it was Chelsea Gray when it counted. And they played a similar style as March Madness. So it was one and done. So the Lunar Owls, they weren't in the tournament style. I think if they would have went against any of those teams, they had been beating them all season. If it was best 2 out of 3, they would have easily won that championship. But that's just not how it went. So they lost to the Vinyl, and Vinyl ended up losing. The beauty of it was that Chelsea Gray played so great. She literally carried that team on this back. They won. They went on to win. Vinyl had no answer for what Chelsea Gray was doing, and then the game was won. And literally by, just by her being a dog. I don't know how else to say it. She literally was a dog. She put that team on his back. I mean, you had great performances. Stevens came through. It was just great performances, and the coach, she really coached well. And I want to say hats off for Unrivaled for putting women coaches in there. You had 2 women coaches, 2 black women coaches, and that for the first league that's gonna, I don't know if it's gonna ever be as big as the WNBA, but it'll just be like that, the league that like a summer league that's really, really good. And that's amazing to see that a black woman's coach won. And the Rose won. So shout out to them. Shout out to Unrivaled. I was just a fan of it the whole way through.
So, Deasia, that was exciting. It made a lot of, it was just so exciting. Like, it made history. Of course, we know the numbers. We know what TNT did as far as televising it. This is one of the things we was talking about in this episode. You have to televise this nationally so people can be able to see it. We didn't have to go searching for it, Deasia. TNT, True TV, they did a great job. And I'm glad that Unrivaled was able to secure those contracts, to secure the viewership so people can be able to watch it. But I just think that this league broke all of my expectations. Like, they wasn't lying when they sent out. I remember like maybe 2-3 months before the league started, they sent out on Instagram they love. Like, they was just building anticipation. Like, send this to your boss saying you have to be out. I'm taking this day off because blah blah blah. Unrivaled is starting today, so I will not be in. Like, that is, they did that and more, Deasia. Like, this was something to watch and you couldn't miss it. So was they completely right that you should have been telling your boss, hey, the championship is coming, the final four, their final four teams, they semifinals, they championship? Yes. Even the one-on-one breakdown of the interruption of the tournament, that was huge. Everything about it. But no one, I like this, Deasia, and this is what is so great about basketball. Like, you can never predict it. Like, always just go with the unexpected. It's kind of, you thought that the Lunar Owls were gonna win, but the team that was ranked 6 out of the entire, they went on to win. So you just need that. The league, it makes sense, Deasia. Like, it would have been great that the Lunar Owls, they was pretty much undefeated besides the one loss to the Rose team, right?
2 losses.
Okay, 2 losses. I stand corrected. That they would have went on and win. They had the best record. Feed the 1-versus-1 champion. Her team, she carries them to the victory. But it's great for basketball. It's great for the story. It's great for the drama. The plot twist that Rose won. So that's everything that you need in a league. That's everything that you need going into the next season. And we asked the question before, Deasia, would they stay with their team? Did we get an answer on that?
I don't know. I didn't look it up, but I can update you very soon. But as of right now, I think from what I understand, I think they will stay for their team. One thing I did want to say though, I think they just really, they tuned in, they heightened the fan experience, I think, even better than what the WNBA does. And I think if there's anything from the WNBA to take away from Unrivaled, I think they should do a better job with that. We don't like to bash the WNBA because we know they're like a sacred little baby. They just trying to grow, But that's something that I think Unrivaled, they got really, they did that amazing. Like, there wasn't big courts. They made sure the fan experience, we weren't even at the games, but we could just see, a halftime break, that coming over interviewing people, like little games that they was playing, but just, it's not even at the games. What about all the things on social media, keeping it involved? Whoever was on the social media team did a great job. But even before the league started, they were showing, okay, how is this 3-on-3 different from the U.S. Olympics? How is this 3-on-3 is going to be played full court? So as fans, we already knew what to expect. But then when we see it, it's like better than what we thought. Not to mention all the other great things that they were doing. They had a merchandise shop. They had interviews.
They made millions of dollars from that. I want to say that. Like, that's huge. Your merchandise sold millions of dollars.
And they went behind the scenes with fans. They showed what they were doing, how they were training. You will see them in the workout rooms. That's stuff that the WNBA, they need to do it more. I don't need to have the WNBA pass to do that. I should just be able to go to the social media page and see that type of stuff, So I think they did amazing with their fan experience. Maybe because it was just a shorter league, but I think that's something that the WNBA can take from that. And I'm not trying to bash the WNBA. I think that the NBA does that too. They do that well, and that's something that the WNBA, they could do. But I think maybe they don't do it as well. It's because they like to keep their league so sacred. But you got to branch into, maybe that's what Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are trying to do. You have to expand and bring that fan experience in consistently. And you got to reach fans at all generations. That's what college does. They reach fans from older fans to younger fans. The Unrivaled, they did that as well. A lot of those fans are kind of diehard though, but that just shows this league can be successful with just diehard basketball fans. Maybe the WNBA needs to do that too. Reach your diehard, reach your generational fans, and you will continuously to grow. But they made strides. That's just my thoughts on. I just think that was a great season. And shout out to Nola Henry. Shout out to the Roves. Shout out to Angel Reese, shout out to Chelsea Gray, shout out to Stevens, everybody that was on that team. I know I missed Slim, Lexi, a lot of players that was on. I mean, they even had
Kylie Copper.
Yeah, they even had one of the players. I want to shout her out. She bounced around from all the teams here, and she ended up on the Rose, the team that won a championship. She started with the Phantom. She went to the Laces. She played for Rose and won a championship. So now she has a championship.
I think what I like about it is, Deasia, they really celebrated them. Some of these leagues, it just, oh, here's your trophy, you won it. This was like no, they celebrated them, and we celebrated them as fans. Deasia, you know them just as much as you know the Liberty that won the WNBA. That's what I like about it. Like, this was a championship. It was a hard-fought battle. We didn't know. We was biting our nails to, see who was going to win. And they was rewarded with a huge trophy. They was the first to do it. But, Deasia, I'm excited. Now, like we was talking about that drama, now the drama continues. Who's going to come back? Who's going to win it the next year? And that's what you need from a young league in its debut season. You need that coming back. So I hope all of them come back, and I hope the league grows. Maybe they have another team. But whatever the things that they did, Deasia, they did it well. And I like that you mentioned they met the fans where they're at. So you got young fans. If you're dancing on TikTok, we know this alpha, I don't even know what generation it is, but everybody that carries around a phone and you dance and put your phone up. It's funny, my team, we at a track meet, and they're saying they're tired, but they have the energy to dance. Like, those kids, that's who they reached. But then they reached us, the millennials. Or what are we? We right in the middle of millennial and whatever, Gen something. But anyway, you reached us. Then you reached our parents, right? So, but like you said, diehards. We love it though. Unrivaled, thank you. You did amazing. This is huge. And we would love to be a part of it in some way next time. If y'all just want us to talk, because that's what we love to do. We would love to be a part of it. But whatever it is, we love being fans of it. And this league, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, next season we can't wait to talk about it, have more episodes with it. I mean, that was kind of the start of our podcast. We started off talking about Unrivaled. So it's been something that it's unfortunately now you know, we can always go refer back to it, but we don't have any more games to cover. We don't have until next
We
season.
don't have
So
any more content, dear.
yeah, so you know, we was just excited. I mean, hats off to it, and we looking forward to talking about it next season. And we know now we're looking forward to the WNBA, but I mean, we got a lot of basketball up ahead of us, a lot of different sports. We still watching the NCAA. We just watching a lot of basketball right now, and you know, as fans of it, we enjoy it. So let us know in the chat, which basketball are you watching right now? Who's going to upset who? Are you watching any of the NBA? Are you watching the NCAA? Who do you think is going to make the Final Four? What other leagues are you excited about? Are you excited about track and field? Are you excited about volleyball or soccer? Let us know in the chat. We're so grateful and thankful for you all listening, tuning in to, you know, hear us converse. We're sorry about the delay, but we're back and we're going to keep doing it every week. Looking forward for a new episode. Follow us on TikTok. Follow us on Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You know, just continually to listen to our conversation and try to stay involved. This is it with it, and we so thankful, and see y'all next time.